Welcome to another swinging episode of Drinks Coach. You're watching on YouTube, lowercase Vinesack, Vinesack. If you're watching this on YouTube, see the bell, hit subscribe. Watch all these fantastic shows that I'm coming at you twice a week. Today, really special one. I'll keep on saying they're special, but this was something else, and this is on the back of a trade tasting I did, a virtual Zoom tasting I did last week. 5 days ago. These wines have been open for 5 days, and in most cases they're still tasting fantastic, which says a lot about the quality of the wines, I think. Here we've got some lovely get rid of these flies. There we go. We've got some albacore tuna here. We've got some yellowfin, some salmon, some lovely fecund vegetables to make a salad. I'm going to barbecue these fish in homage of the wines that we've got in front of you. But today is about two things. It's about the great variety Albarino, which I believe, Magnus, that's my brother, is your favourite. But also it's about the origin of Albarino and where it does its most magical work, which is in Galicia in Spain. If you look at a map of Spain, et voila, you'll see that this is Portugal. This is the band-aid down the side. And just at the top of Portugal is Viña Verde. This is a region in Portugal where they grow largely Albarino as well. And then there's the River Minho, which is actually the border of the country. And then just above that is the region of Rias Baixas. Let's zoom in on the region. Here we go. Also, thank you very much again, courtesy of my lovely wife and our artistic bent. You've got 5 subzones of Rias Baixas. There's the green blobs here, but really 2 of them are very important, if not possibly 3. 2 don't actually have that many wineries in them, but this one down here, Condado de Té, and this one up here, Salnes, are the 2 that really matter, I think. There's O Rosal as well, so there's Condado de Té, Subzona Rosal, and Salnes. Salnes has come slightly later to the party, I believe, but is probably the most exciting in some ways, and I'll explain why. But we've got 7 actually wines here. There's 2 more down here, which I just don't have time to put into the show, which are rather magnificent. So a quick shout out to Paco and Lola, who won a Platinum Award at the Decanter World Wine Awards this year. This is a 2015 wine. I don't know if you see where I'm going with this, but Albarino, most people drink a year old and fresh, but in the best examples, it has the most extraordinary capacity to age. And this is Veigadares 2017. I've just taken those out as absolutely delicious wines. I'm not taking them out because they're less good, because the poorest wine here is a high silver. But because these 2 aren't telling any more of the story I'm already telling with the others. So there we go, right. Also a shout out to my friends Julian and Gavin. Fat Daddy's shirt, wearing it. You told me to wear it, so this is proof. Fat Daddies on tour, friends of mine. I think we'll leave it at that. So, what do we have here? We've got 5 wines, which I've picked out of 7, although I'd be quite happy to drink any of them. I suppose the best way to do this is just to start by drinking. So we're starting with the wine, which actually, these aren't in quality order in any way. These are in age order. This is 2019. I'd never come across the wines from Santiago, Roma before, but if this is anything to go by, I should be buying them every time I see them. Pedranai de Santiago, Roma. Santiago, Roma, as a producer, is in Salnes, in a cool area at the top. The soils are largely sandy and alluvial towards the sea, but there's a huge bedrock of granite, of solid granite, and that granitic soil does something quite special to the taste of Albarino. Maybe I should tell you a little bit more about Albarino first. Albarino, okay, so Albarino, A-L-B-A-R-I-N with a squiggle O. Albarino is how it's spelt in Spanish. In Portugal, and if those loyal followers of this programme will have seen that I've done shows on Viña Verde, the most northerly and largely white region of Portugal, where some extraordinary white wines are made. Portugal produces wines of extraordinary value, but there's a crossover. At the bottom end, what do I say bottom end? At the moderate end of Rias Baixas in Spain, you're probably looking around sort of like £15 upwards. And at the very posh end of Portugal, you're looking at £15 upwards. You're probably, there's a little bit of an overlap. But it seems to me that every restaurant needs one. And on the basis of this, I think everyone needs to be drinking these wines, because the statement I'm about to make is emphatic, and that is, these are some of the best white wines in the world. It's certainly, if you're taking these as a sample group, the best white wine region in Spain. There are wonderful white wines in Spain, and some of them really quite special and famous. There's some famous old white Riocas. If you go into Tondonia white Rioja or Marques de Murrieta, Castillo y Guy, these wines are very special, but there's a handful of them, right? What we've got here is the next evolution of wines made from in largely a single variety, but there are other varieties allowed in the Rias Baixas, which are added in some cases here, which we'll go on to in a minute. But these wines are both fantastically complex, delicious, gastronomic wines that really just makes you want to go and eat something, which I think is almost one of the telltale symptoms. Like losing your sense of smell is a symptom of COVID, wanting to eat fish with a white wine is a symptom of greatness in wine. Let's start off with this then. I did already introduce it as Pedranai from Santiago, Roma, 2019. Right, we're starting off with the most expensive wine here, or nearly, or around about. This is 50 quid. Okay, 50 quid. Okay, so you guys aren't necessarily going to pop out and buy this. They made 600 bottles of this, and it's innovative insofar as, well, I say innovative, it almost sounds like it's going back to the Stone Age, literally. But these wines were fermented in ovoid eggs made from granite. I don't know how they've done it. I can't visualise it. I was looking for pictures online. I certainly want to go and visit the winery. But this wine has been made in vessels of pure stone. The same stone, effectively, that the grapes were grown in. And for that reason, there's not much of it. 50 quid's fine, as far as I'm concerned. Having tasted it, 50 quid is very fine. Because the impact it had on me was so profound. I was just thinking, gosh, this must be one of the best white wines in Spain. I'm going to take my shades off. I can taste the wine better if I take the glasses off. There's an electricity in this wine. I've sometimes mentioned that with wines which come from volcanic areas. But granite and volcanic soils share this kind of energy in the wine. It gives it a wine, it's almost electric tension. When I say electric, I don't know if you, as a kid, if you ever tried to touch both connections on a 9-volt battery with your tongue as a laugh. Yeah, you almost get that sense of there's current moving around your mouth. There's genuine energy there. This wine's been in for 5 days, remember. This wine is limpid. It's not thick. Some Albareños, especially premium Albareños, they rely on more of a rich, oily drag. I think that they go for that, and the way that's achieved is by putting the grapes in the wine and allowing the grapes to soak in the juice for some time before you start fermenting. We call this cold soak or macération pelliculaire. And it gives it a texture, gives it a textural grandeur, which I don't think is always required. This wine has a purity and a glacial Antarctic purity about it. And you're left with this staying power. Although it's light and limpid and watery, it has this long, gorgeously acidic finish of like lime juice, almost like yuzu. And there's this hint which can't come from oak because it was fermented in a tank made of stone. So it would probably be from extended lees aging, and I think that's profound in this wine. This wine has, you can taste the dead yeast cells which are in the tank have settled, and this is how Chablis and Muscadet are made. And this doesn't have the texture of Grand Cru Chablis either. It's more linear than that, lighter than that. Hard to think of an equivalent to give you some sort of idea. But this is as good as £50 Grand Cru Chablis. No question about it. And I, particularly, would prefer to drink this with this kind of food, or particularly with squid, or even octopus, or something like that. But absolutely amazing wine. 50 quid, though, right? So let's move on. So these are getting older. So what I want to show you is Albariño. I think up until recently was seen as something that could age as a quirk in some vintages, but if managed properly, it looks like it's a consistently good wine to keep in the cellar for certainly up to 5 to 10 years. Now, moving on to this. This is Don Alvaro de Bazán, and this is Granbazán. This is their top wine. I believe that it comes from 2 or 3 different growers. Look, there aren't very many people who grow much wine in Rias Baixas. There's like thousands of growers, and each one makes an acre of wine. So almost all wine, even what look like estate wines, are actually contracts or small mini cooperatives of 5 or 6 families. And here we've got a wine made from, I understand it, vineyards which are very old, somewhere between 40 and 100 years old. It had a very, very intelligent winemaker who told me all about it last week. I'm afraid I've lost virtually everything that he said. But this wine's amazing. So we've gone from a wine that's 2019, 2 years old, spent a whole year in a stone jar, basically. Here we've got a wine which I think has shown some signs of maybe large inert oak aging, in part anyway. And 2018, I think, was a grand year for rich wines, made very, very big wines in Spain. And I have to say that I fell in love with this wine too. Granbazán, vintage 2018. The punchline is yet to be said, but anyway, much darker colour. I think that's an indication there's been some oxidative handling. Oh man, I can't believe this is 5 days old. And like, it's not like I just took a bit out of it. It's my wife and I couldn't stop sneaking little go, have a little bit out of this one, have a little bit out of this one, so we can still do a show on Tuesday. We've drank most of them, and they're still fine. And I still can't wait to have them with the fish. So, oh man, so this is much more. Much more, I think, in a kind of like in a prediction of what, if you know what Albariño tastes like when it's very young, if it's a 2020 Albariño 21, you taste this, which is 2 years older. This wine is slightly broader. Maybe there's a natural selection of yeasts, because the wine has much more fluffy, rich, broad texture in the mouth, but that is mouth feeling. And one of the things that people talk about with Albariño is when it's really good, it's both fruity and saline at the same time. There's a real sense of it being by the coast. And this is probably from the Salnés subzone, because I think it's based in Pontevedra, this wine. So this wine is from up here. Now this region, which we talked about in Salnés, I think more and more people are planting there, but this region produces wines which are singularly cooler. The temperature's much colder there. If you go down to Arrozal, it's a little bit warmer, but more consistent. It's still by the coast. If you go inland to Contado, then you get very much hotter nights and hotter days and cooler nights. So these all have quite distinctly different temperature patterns, which makes a big difference to where they taste. But also, Arrozal in the south is very what we call sablé in French. So that'll be alluvial soils and sandy soils. But this place is where the shiznit is, where the concrete is, the granite is, and this again shows wonderful energy, but much, much bigger. How to describe it's like salty satsumas, which is weird, but it's just so delicious. There's kind of like a tangy, you know how apricots have a tang or quinces have a tang, it's like that. But there is this salty minerality, which just makes you want to pick up a prawn and eat it. That sweetness of a prawn, and this is making me salivate just at the thought of it. Nice to see planes in the air again. I know that's not the right thing to say, but there we go. Right, 2 more to go. Oh, no, 3 more to go. First of all, I just wanted to say, you can buy this for under 20 quid. This is £19, and this is... I'm just going to say it, this is probably one of the 5 best wines I've tasted on £20 in the last 12 months. And I'm going to buy some more, because it's delicious. Okay, moving on to this one. The reason I wanted to show you this one is very, very important. It's a different style, but also very, very important producer. This is Martin Codax, or Martin Codax, as you can see that. If you go into Majestic, they've been selling this stuff forever. Considering how amazing these white wines are, Rias Baixas only got its Denominación Origen, its DO, in 1988. And this is a cooperative that started around that time. I think their first release would have been 1991-92 in the UK. And so this has been around as long as the denominación has existed, and many people say that the denominación wouldn't exist for Martin Kodax because it was the first large co-op to really bring power to lots and lots of hundreds of growers who needed a place to lay their wine and somebody to tell them how to make it. And the female winemaker here, she's spectacularly intelligent and a great person to listen to. Forgive me if I can't remember on the cuff what her name is, but she did an amazing job of explaining her wines the other day. This wine has spent 10 months after the fermentation in tanks. But what they've done is, and this wine has more what we call aldehyde, has more vinosity, more wininess, I suppose, in a way, is that the dead yeast cells in each of the tanks, they go around and empty all the tanks and taste the lees that have the most green aromatics, the most fragrance. And then they chuck the others out and then age all the wine on the lees which are what we call the finest lees, the lightest, freshest, cleanest, greenest lees. So that accentuates that yeasty character I was telling you about earlier. So where I said this is probably worth kind of Grand Cru Chablis money, if I was going to pick a Rias Baixas that tastes like Grand Cru Chablis, it's this fella, and it's called Liás, Lias. This is Liás Albrino, the top wine from the co-op of Martin Kodax. You can buy their wines for under a tenner comfortably, certainly on overseas. I think about 11 quid maybe. If you go to Majestic, I think it is about a tenner if you buy 2 bottles or more. This wine over the 5 days has actually, if anything, it's improved. It's got a smell of preserved lemon. There's a lemon, almost fresh Sorrento lime, a lemon rind smell to it. But this has texture. This has texture where this has that super clean, limpid, glacial wateriness. This has the mouthfeel of maybe certainly a Premier Cru Chablis. I'm trying to think of Vaudeville, possibly, something like that. One of the cooler crus. But a very, very interesting wine indeed. And at the end, there's this big squeeze, big hit of juicy lemon acidity. And it spent 2 months being stirred on its lees. Batonnage is common. They do batonnage here as well, where they stir the wine in the tank every couple of weeks, and that whips up the dead yeast cells, and it actually creates a thickness and a savoury texture to the wine, which otherwise wouldn't be there. And also gives it little hints, little smoky, toasty notes, which you might mistake as wood, but actually it just come from the dead yeast. Mm-hmm. Right, moving back onto this one. What can I say about this? Carlos Reed, a legend in the industry, certainly about Spanish wines, from Moreno Wines, presented this to us, the 40 or 50 people in the Zoom chat, and he was so smug. He was like going, yeah, this is the best one, and we make the best wine, and we've got the oldest vines, and yeah, it's fantastic. I'm afraid it costs £30 or £40, but pay peanuts, get monkeys. But welcome to one of the most amazing wines in Europe. And I'm fine with that because he's absolutely right, and Carlos knows he is. I think Moreno must have been the people who imported this wine from day one, but they have been making wine. These people have been making wine for very, very much longer than since 1988. And this wine, which is called Tres Años, because it's always released 3 years old, comes from the Castle de Fefiñanes, or Palacio de Fefiñanes, which is the last word in Great Albarino. If you buy the basic, if that's the right word, Fefiñanes, it's about £20 or £17. Waitrose, I think, currently sells it. Utterly beguiling. It's my absolute go-to white wine. If I see it on a restaurant list, it's very, very hard for me to revert my eyes. I have to buy that wine because it goes with all the kind of lovely things that I like oysters and lobster and scallops and things, all the things that give me gout. Anyway, but this wine is Tres Años. They only make about 7,000 bottles a year. It's made from vineyards, the best vineyards from about 5 families. And again, from Pontevedra. It's from that area up in the north, in the Salness district. And some of the vines are 140 years old. Look at the colour. Has a beautiful golden straw colour to it. He said it reminds him as a kid of tins of tangerine segments. Of mandarin segments, that's right. And the moment he said that, I couldn't unthink it anymore. This wine does smell of the mandarin segments you get in a 5-year-old birthday party's jelly. It's so Mandarin, it's not funny. But there's more complexity to that. It's got a wonderful stony overlay. Oh, it's so mouth-filling and so juicy. I can't believe these wines have been open a week. I'm really fussy. Normally when a wine's open overnight, I go, I'm sorry, I can't drink that anymore. It's lost all its texture. Far from it. These wines are absolutely smashing. So I think you went to a fancy shop like Selfridges or Harrods. They'll sell this, but it's probably 40 quid, maybe even north of 40 quid. If you go to a shop which is more reasonable, you may find this wine much closer to £30. But it's certainly going to cost you more than £30, this wine, and it will definitely cost you less than 50. Which one's better? I don't know. This has been around longer. I think what they've done here is really miraculous and very different, and not at all orthodox, but absolutely amazing wine. But I think if you took a straw poll, more people would enjoy this than this, if I'm honest. Although I'm protecting this one avidly. Barbecued salmon on the way. So that leaves us with this. Wow. This wine is a real kind of statement. This wine is no longer available vintage-wise because the 2011 ran out and they weren't ready to send the 2012 out, which is 9 years old. So the people at Pazo de Señorans, which is another one of the absolute celestial superstars of the area, they sent us the 2010, which they had in stock, which was the vintage that sold out before the one that sold out. And yeah, this one's a 2010 wine, so it's 11 years old. I think it's mostly Albariño, 100% Albariño, this one actually. And it's 30 months before it's bottled. This is largely considered to be, and I think there are some people who agree, to be the best white wine in Spain. With the exception of some of those really rare old Riojas that I told you about. What's extraordinary about this is the fact that it's released a decade old, and there's absolutely no question that the wine would age for another 10. It has much bigger textures. Takes advantage of all that wonderful drag that you get from the Liás aging. It takes advantage of very, very expert wood aging, but old, inert, large wood. Wow. The closest thing I can think of, and while we're on the chat, a colleague, Tim Atkin, I think sort of agreed with me. He thought it smelled like Alsace Grand Cru Riesling, and I thought this tastes like a Grosser Gewächs, which is Grand Cru in German. Pfalz or Rheingau Riesling. It had the tightness, the minerality, the pose, the posture of a wine that just has, once you've had it in your mouth, you can't get rid of it readily. You can brush your teeth, it'll probably still be there. It has such persistence, and it tasted of quinces, of I don't know, a little bit of melon as well. There's got a lovely kind of background perfume fruit. Well, it's fair to say this is probably the one that's fallen over the most, but then again, it's the oldest here. And it's still lovely, to be fair. But there you go. So Albariño, if you'd like to look at the shows from Vinha Verde, Portugal, put in Vinha Verde Drinks Coach, that'll come up. I'll probably do, on the back of this now, I'll have to do a show on reasonably priced Albariños, or Albariños under £20. But remember, one of these was under 20 quid. I think two of them possibly. Welcome to the new Spain. This is one of the most amazing white wine regions in the world. It so suits the food in the area. You're in the north west of Spain on the Costa Verde. You've got Coruña at the top. I believe 90% of all the mussels that we eat in Europe all come from that coast. There's the most amazingly weird shellfish, like little gooseneck barnacles called percebes, which is, I think, the finest food known to mankind. And with this, oh my God, it's amazing. So whether in Portugal or in Spain, this area is turning heads all the time, and the wines I'm tasting here with you I'm finding it hard to find the right words, are truly magical wines, and I question why you have to pay £35 for vintage Chardonnay now when you can drink wine this good from Spain at the same price. Till next time, drinks coach. Barbecue time.